Now it's time for No Pucks Given with Dan Kingerski of Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Penguin scoops, locker room buzz, and straight-up analysis. No fluff, all hockey. Now, here's Dan.
Well, it is No Pucks Given here on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now platforms, the Odyssey podcast network, YouTube, Facebook, and I don't know where everybody puts the show, but you can get this No Pucks Given episode, I think, number 38, wherever you get your podcast, Apple and Spotify and all those fun stuff. So we've got a pretty fun show. I'm tired of hearing myself talk for 45 minutes to an hour. So I've decided to add a co-host now going forward, at least when we can make schedules work. From the Fischler Report, longtime Penguins scribe, Vince Comunale. Hey, Vince, thank you for putting up with me and doing this show with me.
Hey, anytime. I love talking hockey.
Yeah. Notice Vince didn't say talking to me. He said talking to hockey. All right, Vince. So here are the handful of topics that I've quickly jotted down as I've run home from the arena Sunday night to record this podcast, which people will hear Monday morning as I am flying to Sweden. Because, I didn't want to go to the Paul McCartney concert or anything. I wanted to go to Sweden for 2 games over the course of a week. I digress. We're going to talk about the state of the Penguins. 1 point on, or actually 1 point over the weekend. Is this A, the hockey gods just taking a couple back? B, a bad weekend? Or C, are we now getting into a trend? We're also going to talk about the rookies, Harrison Brunicke, what they're going to do with him. Sergei Murashov makes his much anticipated NHL debut on Sunday. Looked pretty good. Got a pretty good glove hand, if I do say so. Yes. But also there's a couple of young players sort of beginning to over-ripen down in Wilkes-Barre. Those are Owen Pickering and Tristan Broz. So we'll talk about the handful of rookies. I guess I should put Ville Koivunen on that list as well. What comes next with Ville too. I suppose, Vince, we can probably start the show with just a little send-up of the resurrection of Ryan Graves. Led the Penguins in shots on Sunday with 5. Tied for the team lead with shots on Saturday with 3. Playing good defense. What the heck happened? But also some near 40-year-olds, Evgeni Malkin and Sidney Crosby, near the top of the league in scoring. Sidney Crosby, I guess, by not playing one game, or other players playing extra games, has fallen to 3rd in the league in goal scoring, while Malkin is still top 5 in scoring.
Yeah, tops in assists.
Yeah. Vince, a 39-year-old isn't supposed to put up points like this.
No. I'm actually writing something right now for my website.
Go ahead and plug it.
Vincecom.com. Pretty easy to remember.
Vincecom.com.
Yeah. The standard by which players aged 38 to 45 is set by Gordie Howe. Gordie Howe had 103 points in his age 42 season. Other than Gordie Howe and Jaromir Jagr, we've never seen players at age 38 or above play quite like Evgeni Malkin and Sidney Crosby are to start this season. I know they're not going to average, 1.21 points a game or whatever it is throughout the rest of the season. But, we've seen Sid in every season of his career average at least a point a game. And in Malkin's career, 15 of his seasons, he's averaged at least a point a game. So I don't see any reason why they can't keep up a point a game pace.
Well, that's the interesting thing, because they have so feasted on the power play early in the season.
Yes.
Their 5-on-5 production has to even out, because for all of the chattering, the analytics crowd, they're smart. Just ask them. The Penguins, PDO is so overrated and all of that. Sidney Crosby does not have a great PD. I mean, the number of chances that his line is not converting, when that begins to equalize, he's going to have a lot more 5-on-5 points. And it's astounding to me how well, actually, I guess I expected this of Crosby, but just
Yes.
because I don't know. He's never given us a reason not to expect absolute greatness. But Malkin, his gah, mistake on Sunday notwithstanding, has been exceptional this season. Really just moving well and moving the puck and playing like he's 10 years younger.
Yeah, I was actually going to say he's got a little like giddy up to his step this season that we didn't see last. Well, we saw at the beginning of last season too, but he really kind of fell off a cliff as the season went on. But he looks like a force out there. I think to me he's playing with a lot more confidence because he's playing with two gigantic wingers. Well, until Brazeau got hurt, and I think that they're opening space for him to create and just generate more offense. And it seems like he's playing with more confidence out there because there's more space out there for him in which to operate. And obviously, the power play speaks for itself. But I think moving forward, the team's really going to have to continue to capitalize on the power play to stay where they're at in the standings, because 5-on-5, they're not generating much right now. And especially with some key injuries, especially to Raquel, they're going to have to really capitalize on their power play chances.
What do you think? Can Anthony Mantha, I mean, you could knock me over with a feather if he actually continued about this pace and scored 40 goals. But can this guy score 25 to 30? I mean, I have to tell you, from what I've seen so far, I love his game. He is doing things that people said he doesn't do. I mean, he looks like a different player than sort of the washout with the Capitals and Detroit.
He plays a simple game. I mean, it's for the most part a north-south game. He goes to the front of the net. He kind of wreaks havoc. I'm not gonna say wreaks havoc. He's not like a Patrick Hornquist or anything in front of the net like that. But to me, he's playing a simple game. And like I said,
he's also slick. Like those hands.
Yeah, he does have good hands, which surprised me. I know he kind of had a high pedigree when he first came into the league. But admittedly, I haven't gotten a chance to really examine his game throughout his career. But the hands,
A, he's been injured, or B, getting traded.
Yeah, exactly. But the hands are something that really surprised me. He definitely has like a soft touch with his hands, and I think that he's never played with a guy like Malkin before either. And I think that he's really thriving with playing with Malkin as his center.
Well, long time ago, you're making me feel old. Yeah, when he was with the Capitals, he got some good top six time, and the Capitals certainly had maybe perhaps not quite to Evgeni Malkin's caliber. I don't know if he played with Nick Backstrom too much back then. I don't remember.
I don't recall that.
Yeah, the Capitals were not short on talent back then. But okay, so I guess the question though, A, is this the hockey gods taking a couple back from the Penguins? B, just a bad weekend? Or C, is this weekend where they gain 1 point despite outplaying two opponents? Is this the trend?
Yeah, I think it's more of the hockey gods taking a couple back.
Okay.
Because I think that they won some games earlier this season they had no business winning.
Several.
Yeah, more than one. I think that they're not the top team in the Eastern Conference, as they had a chance to be yesterday if they would have won that game in New Jersey. But I do think that they are a playoff team, like a 6, 7, 8 seed, the way that they're playing. They're playing. I'm hesitant to say they're playing well defensively because they're giving up multiple goal leads in a lot of games recently. But
the odd man rushes, and it's just almost in their DNA to get stupid.
Yes.
There's no other way to put it. You don't see other teams just heaping odd man rushes on their goalie like the Penguins do. And it's not bad bounces or bad luck. It's bad decisions.
Very bad decisions. I mean, that play that Chris Letang made yesterday in New Jersey that led to Jersey's goal.
The drop pass to no one.
I mean, the only thing worse that I've ever seen is the drop pass into the empty net in Arizona a couple seasons ago. I mean, I don't know
He's
what
still mad about that, by the way.
Yeah, well, he should be. I don't know what he's thinking there, and Erik Karlsson's playing much better defensively this year, but sometimes I still watch him play, and I just don't know what he's thinking. I mean, there was a play he decided to make in the overtime against Philadelphia last week. Like this, maybe he didn't realize it was overtime. Maybe he didn't realize it was 3-on-3. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, most teams when they have a 3-0 lead going into the third period would really clamp down and make sure that they win the game 3-0, 3-1. Not the Penguins. They keep on trying to score. It doesn't matter who the coach is. It doesn't matter what the situation is. They will never change as long as that core three of guys are here. And it's frustrating, I'm sure, as a fan to watch, especially, points are precious, and to lose that game in regulation without even getting a point in Toronto after leading 3-0, and even today, going into the third, leading 2-1, and then not getting a point out of that's going to be a long flight to Sweden.
Well, yeah, Dan Muse, I think for the first time this season, really was upset. There was an undertone of anger after the game. I mean, like that parent when the voice gets heavy and deep. He had a bit of that going. The NHL.com reporter, one of the national ones, came in to cover the game today because he's just going to, basically follow the team to Sweden and wanted a little bit of a springboard sort of coverage. So he very graciously, actually, I appreciated his professionalism, not to try to jump the line and ask a soft question before the hard hockey questions. By the way, for podcast listeners, if you ever want to see Dan or a couple other serious reporters just get a look of disgust, watch one of these scrum killers ask a boneheaded question. So when there's real hockey questions to ask, I digress.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, you've been in these scrums and you've got like things you have to address. This play, this situation, and somebody wants to go like off on a tangent with something personal or happy in a very sour moment. You're like, no, because as soon as they do that, now the media scrum is over. Now the player's like off kilter, like, okay, now I'll talk about this. Yeah. And you can't pull them back. Okay, now as to why you sucked, let's get back into this.
You see it a lot. The game ends 4-3 in a shootout, and the first question is, what do you think of those third jerseys that you wore tonight? It's like, what are we doing here? Anyway, I digress too.
Fortunately, the scrum killers in the Penguins universe have actually all kind of gone away. I really can't tell you the last time a colleague did that. It's quite nice. Don't get me wrong. It's the out of towners. I won't say which city that the Penguins. This is a whole tangent we're going to talk about. I guess this is what a podcast is for, I suppose. There is one city that drives the Penguins PR bananas because they all like swarm around the star players and invariably only ask about their own players. Hey, what do you think about our captain? Hey, what do you think about our winger?
Yeah.
And the Penguins players are like, yeah, they're good. What do you want me to say? And they just, it's kind of relentless. That's actually funny because this year I knew to look for it. Last year I was caught in the middle of it trying to do a hockey story, and I got swarmed by those moths and gnats. This year I stood back and watched. I watched the PR just like fold their arms and get uptight, and I watched the player fidget and try to figure out a way out of the questions. It was quite funny, actually.
It's always awkward. I've written for a lot of publications, as have you, and some of the national.
Actually, no, I've only written for one publication.
Oh, it seems like you've written for a bunch, but maybe not.
I was always doing radio. That's why I've been around. forever and a day.
But yeah, I've written for a bunch of them, and one of the national ones, they would send us questions to ask. And again, we're getting off on a tangent, completely different here, but that's the point of a podcast, I guess. It was the last game before the Olympic break. It was at the Civic Arena. The Penguins had just beaten Nashville like 5-0. And you remember the visitors' locker room in the old Civic Arena. It was
was no better than a dank Muni locker room.
Yeah. It's like a local. I mean, I've played in better rinks and locker rooms locally here. So I'm the only reporter in the room because Nashville very rarely sends a reporter to away games.
Right.
And I have to traipse through all the hockey bags and get to Shea Weber because they wanted me to ask Shea Weber what he thought about the Olympics. And Shea Weber was not in a great mood to answer any questions after losing 4-0. And, he kind of just gave me this look like, this is what you're asking me after a 4-0 loss. And I'm like, I wanted to say to him, not my question. This is what they wanted me to ask you.
Now, see, I would have said that. Listen, man, I'm, the outlet wants to write a story on this. I know, and I apologize. I have had some success when I have to do that. But yeah, okay. So we were talking, I guess we can flip the page because I'm just going to say, I actually think this is a bit of a trend with the Penguins. They still, I still don't feel like they've gelled in Dan Muse's system. The inconsistency will always be there with this team. What Muse is asking of them defensively, sometimes it seems like their inconsistency exacerbates their shortcomings defensively.
Yeah.
And I think if there is an undoing, if there's a spiral this season, it's going to come once again giving up leads, defensive mistakes, and that sort of thing. It won't come on the scoring side of things. I think they'll figure that part out. But they really, Muse is asking them to be good in the defensive zone, take a man-to-man coverage in the hard areas of the ice and know when to release your guy. And the Penguins are really good at releasing players. They're not so good at picking them up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're trying to create offense from playing good defense, and it was working great for the first 10 games. The last 7, not so much. I mean, they're in every game, and as we've seen the last 3, they even have leads in these games. But like you said, there's a difference between releasing and picking up, and they're not picking up.
I feel like Seinfeld in the car rental. Anyone can take a reservation. The key is to hold the reservation. Anyone can release the player. The key is picking up the player.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about the rookies. Harrison Brunicke, I think, is probably top of mind. Ben Kindle has transcended everything. Yeah. At this point, he very well is in line to get, maybe some back-end Calder Trophy votes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, really, he is. So it's almost not fun talking about him right now because I've done it so much. Harrison Brunicke has played his 9 games. He is with the team still. I asked Dan Muse before the game on Saturday, okay, is, still status quo with Brunicke? And he gave me a really cryptic answer, Vince. And I haven't written about it because I didn't want to write about it and then them pull the rug out from under me and send him back to juniors or play his 10th game today. But he's like, oh, we've got a very detailed plan. We're continuing to follow through and execute on that plan. And I want to say, okay, can you share that plan with anybody else? But what do you think? Is this just a prelude to keep him around, keep him practicing with the guys before they send him back to juniors to limit his exposure in the WHL before presumably he goes to Team Canada in mid-December? Or are they going to keep him around, kind of prolonging his season with plenty of healthy scratches and and then send him to Team Canada, bring him back, and that sort of thing. What do you think? Which way do they go?
I think that he's going back to junior, but I think for whatever reason they want to keep him around to get him the experience of going to Sweden. I think they want him to be around the team as much as possible, and get him that kind of bonding experience with the guys going to Sweden, and get the continue to practice, get the whole NHL experience. But I don't think he's going to play either of the games in Sweden. And then I think when they get back, I think he's going to be sent back to junior.
Huh. I was actually leaning toward sort of, I don't want to call it nefarious, but a little bit sneaky, in which they kind of work him in. They scratch him for enough games where they can send him down to the AHL on a conditioning assignment, at which point then they can send him to Team Canada for the World Juniors. They bring him back. They scratch him a few more games. Maybe they play him, several games, from mid-January to early February, at which point then you've got the Olympic break. I guess they can't send him down to the AHL during the Olympic break, which is silly beyond belief. But I digress. You come out of the Olympic break, you can actually send him back to juniors. You can send him back to juniors in February or March, provided he hasn't, played the 40 games. And I kind of see them going that way, where it's really intricate. They get him as much professional hockey as they possibly can, while balancing the need to win games. I think Connor Clifton and Ryan Graves playing so well the last couple of games really underscored just how shaky Pickering and Brunicke were for those.
That was a bad pair. Yeah, that was.
Well, I don't know what they were thinking on that, Vince.
I don't either. I don't know why you would pair those two together, and not only why would you pair those two together, but have them out there in key situations at the end of that Toronto game. Made no sense to me. I mean, I'm all for getting young guys, important and key game experience, but not in that situation.
Well, not together.
And
they're both figuring out intricacies, so there's no one to lean on. Like, one makes a mistake, and the other has no idea how to clean it up. So you've got a complete disaster area if anybody made a mistake. And I kind of felt bad for both of them in that situation, because it was almost a zero chance of success sort of moment for both of them.
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't pair like one of them with Clifton or one of them with Dumba, like putting both of them together. I don't know. Like I said, it just kind of defies logic. And, I think you're agreeing with me. When I saw that pairing, I'm like, okay, they better not play any more than like 6 or 7 minutes. And there they are out there in a game that's 3-1, 3-2. And I'm going, this isn't going to end well. And it sure didn't.
Well, yeah, and I kind of felt like Pickering didn't get his feet underneath of him. And in fact, I know he didn't. And I sort of feel for the guy, because he's starting to get that. There's starting to be a little bit of a fade.
Yes.
On his Rose there. He wasn't drafted by Kyle Dubas, so he's not part of this regime's selection. And he played 20 pretty good games last year. The moment he began to struggle a little bit, got the hook.
He's out. Yep.
Which never made sense to me. And obviously I thought this year they badly needed left-handed defensemen, and they still sent him down. And I know Owen is smart enough, maybe sensitive enough, which might not be the best trait, to realize, geez, I'm not in favor here. I'm not one of the golden boys.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for potential trade candidates other than the obvious, like Kevin Hayes, Noah Chari, Blake Lizotte type of guys.
Interesting.
Pickering might be one of those guys that just needs a change of scenery. And
all at 21 years old.
Yeah, I mean,
that would be if they want to get a younger player from somebody else.
Yes,
they've a Jaeger for McGroarty type trade.
Exactly.
Okay, so Do you think Pickering gets back to the NHL this season?
I think he's going to be that guy that's the first guy called up
Okay.
when a defenseman goes down, but I just don't see him sticking here. I mean, the fact that he knew that he had to have a great camp and he did not have a great camp and he didn't make the team. I just think that he's kind of fallen out of favor. I'm not saying he's completely not in their long-term plans, but I think that, like you said, his shine is starting to fade a little bit.
Yeah, Kyle Dubas's sort of very pointed comments. They weren't terse, but they were definitely pointed where Owen has to come in and prove to us, show us that he can be, top four and play more than 17 or 18 minutes a night. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, what's wrong with, establishing yourself as a third pairing guy and playing 17 or 18 minutes to start to get your feet wet? But the Penguins kind of have a bar on him and they're holding to it. Tristan Broz, count me as shocked that he didn't get the call when they needed a center. Instead, Danton Heinen. Now, Heinen led the American Hockey League in scoring.
Yes.
Okay. He's also 30, bit of a journeyman. Why don't you recall Tristan Broz in that situation?
Yeah, I didn't get that either. That harkened back to me to a Mike Sullivan type of move. In my opinion, you leave Heinen down in the minors. He's having a great season down there. He's kind of your leader, your veteran leader on that team, other than Ryan Graves when he's there. And you bring these young guys up here and see what they can do. That's the whole thing that's supposed to be happening up here at the NHL level right now. You're supposed to be seeing what these young players can do. Danton Heinen is not going to be on this team in 5 years. Tristan Broz should be, hopefully, and might be.
Right.
But how are you going to know if he's not up here playing? Seeing what he can do. And the other thing is too, you see it when these young guys are in the lineup. There's a different energy in the lineup compared to when Kevin Hayes is in there or Chari or whoever. No offense to those guys, but it's different. It's a completely different energy. And I watched Heinen yesterday and today. He's not doing anything to impress me. Good on him that he's leading the AHL in scoring, and he's a solid, NHL veteran, third, maybe fourth line guy. But I don't know. I just, if you're trying to have a youth movement, calling up a guy who's 30 years old doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I've got some thoughts on that, but here's what we're going to do, Vince. The Odyssey Podcast Network wants to pay some bills. So we've got more to talk about. Now, on the video side, this conversation keeps rolling. On the podcast side, we take a break right now. I do have some thoughts on the Broz and Heinen thing. And Kyle Dubas on his show, which, by the way, I still don't like that Kyle Dubas does a bi-weekly show on the Penguins network and doesn't talk to us very often. That gets on. Yeah, professionally speaking, it doesn't serve my business very well. He was, kind of glowing up Danton Heinen, leading scorer in the AHL, really, learning to play center. And I was kind of thinking, great, but the underbelly of his comments were that the Penguins are going for wins right now. You said it was kind of a Mike Sullivan thing. It seems to me that I won't use the word abandon, because obviously at any one day they've got 4 or 5 rookies in the lineup.
Yeah.
Can't say they're abandoning youth when they've got that many kids, on the ice. But they made a decision based on winning right now versus, what Kyle Dubas said in training camp was, if the young players push all the way through camp, push all the way through preseason, they will make the team, and I'll deal with the, quote, rippling effects with the veterans. Well, He didn't. He didn't deal with those rippling effects, and he called up, again, no disrespect to Danton Heinen, who
No,
played
not at
fine
all.
as a center. He's kind of being shuffled back and forth. Sometimes he's a winger. Sometimes Kevin Hayes is a center. Sometimes Heinen is a center. Sometimes Hayes is. It's they're shuffling their bottom six pretty aggressively. But Broz especially, because I thought he really had a strong training camp. Like he pushed, and I was kind of happy for the kid. He's got silky hands, and he's faster than people think. He's stocky. He doesn't look fast. And then you realize he just covered half the ice in a blink of an eye. And you're like, oh, wow. So, yeah, that was kind of a unique. No, I shouldn't say unique. That was an interesting situation. And I wonder if the Penguins might undo that move after Sweden.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying there's any correlation between Dan Heinen being the guy called up and them not winning the past 2 or 3 games, but you wonder if that infusion of youth would have given this team a different look. I'm not saying there's any correlation, but I do wonder what that would have looked like.
Well, without Ben Kindle leading the third line, they are in desperate need of some offensive push.
Yes.
On that line. If there was one thing that it kind of stood out in the last couple of games, it was, where did the third line go?
Yeah,
they really didn't contribute or chip in too much, Vince. And it's, so either you put Heinen up with Crosby and put Kindle back on the third line, or you figure out who centers your third line. I mean, look, I guess Ville Koivunen had some glorious scoring chances on Saturday as part of that third line. But those seemed like they popped up. Those were not, I don't know, that wasn't sustained pressure more than a shift or two by that third line.
The last 2 or 3 games, you can't tell where the third line starts and the fourth line ends. They're to me, they're all space fillers right now.
The fourth line was great, but they're not going to play 20-goal pace all season. That was maybe a little over their heads.
Yeah, I guess one thing we have to keep in mind too is the injuries to Raquel and Brazeau are pretty significant as far as changing the makeup of this lineup. The lines were very balanced when those two were in the lineup, and like you said, with Kindle centering that third line, it gave it a very different look than a traditional third line.
It was a top 9, not a top 6.
Exactly. But those with Brazeau, the way he started the season, scoring almost every game, it seemed like, and Raquel is what he is. He plays great on that first line with Crosby. When you take those two out of the lineup, it's hard to replace, and it really changes the whole balance of the lineup when those two are out.
All right. So I think, Ville Koivunen. I did mention him. I had a little fun, might not be the right word, but I like talking to some of these kids, and I maybe kind of poked him a little bit on Friday, because on Thursday night he had a couple of great scoring chances and kind of bent the stick over his knee and looking up to the heavens and going through all of that. And I said, well, is that a good frustration or a bad frustration? Like a good frustration, knowing you're close.
Yeah.
And he kind of stopped and rethought about it, because it was kind of obviously getting to be a bad frustration. And listen, I'm no one's therapist, certainly not my job as a media person. But just in talking to him, he kind of needed a little, I don't know, a little feel good that somebody noticed he's getting these chances. And
yeah,
he kind of perked up a little bit when I asked that, good frustration question. It's sort of, and he still couldn't get it in New Jersey. Oh, Jake Allen still has no idea how he made the one save.
Yeah, he's right on the verge, and I'm rooting for him because like you said, from all accounts, he's a great kid and good personality, and again, it's hard when these guys get called up, these young guys, and they get put on a third line and getting 11 minutes a night, and it's hard to go out there and make an impact in that limited amount of time. I mean, you have to remember these young guys, they've been the star of every team they've ever played on up until they get to the NHL level, and they're used to playing 20 minutes a night or more, top power play, things like that. And then they get up to the NHL, and that those opportunities aren't there. So you have to make the most of every shift that you get when you get out there. And a guy that comes to
such an important sentence.
Yeah. A guy that comes to mind for me is Zach Aston-Reese, a former Penguin. He led the country in scoring in college and was a finalist for the Player of the Year. And he comes to the NHL, and all of a sudden he's a fourth line guy.
Fourth liner.
Yeah. And I think that was a tough adjustment for him. Now, good on him. He's carved out a career being a third and fourth line guy, still playing with Columbus, right, to this day. Mm-hmm. But I think that him and dozens of other players have trouble at first making that adjustment from being the guy on every team they've ever played on to being a 10-minute a night role player.
Yeah, Aston-Reese always was such a curious case to me because the COVID season, he scores 9 goals in 50 games, and you're like, oh, okay, there it is. And then he's so buckled into playing that defensive role that the coaches would literally say to him, hey, try to play with the puck. You're good at it. Stop, giving it up like a hot potato. I digress. No one's here to talk about Zach Aston-Reese, but with Ville Koivunen, I wonder how much more rope he's going to get. I wonder if they might call up a Tristan Broz at the expense of Koivunen, because when he's on it, he's jumping between the dots. He's mixing it up by the net. Mm-hmm. He's playing a really scrappy, aggressive game. What we've seen from him intermittently, perhaps more so than the good game, is the bad game where he's on the perimeter. He actually gets knocked off his skates. I think he needs to get stronger still. He's going to have to spend maybe part of this season or the off season next summer really adding some bulk or some strength, because he gets knocked around probably too much for his own good.
I worry about that with Kindle too, because Kindle is reckless. He goes to the net. He doesn't care. He at one point today, he ended up on top of the goalie. I mean, yesterday he skated right through the crease in overtime, drove hard to the net. I think he ran into Jake Allen yesterday. And can somebody get that kid a helmet that fits? It looks like every shift he takes, his helmet's gonna fall. He's like O'Neal Cruz out there for the Pirates. But he's another guy. He's scrawny. There's no such thing as a scrawny hockey player like we saw in like the 80s or the 90s. But I mean, he's not the biggest guy in the world either, but he's reckless out there in a good way. Yeah. Reminds me of Gensel a little bit.
A lot. Yeah. He's willing to go to the net and take it.
Yeah. But like you said, with Koivunen, he's getting knocked around a lot today too. In the game today, he got drilled pretty hard into the boards and actually went off the ice for a little bit, which I think everybody breathed a sigh of relief when he came back out. But he's going to have to bulk up a little bit too. But imagine, putting some weight on to the game that he already plays, and he'll be a really good player.
Yeah. Well, if they ever need to bulk up, they can always put them on the Dan Kingerski diet.
That'll probably help expedite things.
Yes, I can show them how to gain weight like on one road trip. There's 5 pounds for you. All right, so that takes care of the rookies. Let's talk a bit about Ryan Graves and Connor Clifton and that third pairing, Vince. And I think that we can probably wrap it there. Color me absolutely shocked. I mean, yeah. I had a conversation with Clifton on Thursday or Friday. Honest to God, these days have all just bled together. These road trips, you come home for a day, you're back in the car, you get home for a day, you're back in a plane, and it's been as crazy as I can ever remember it.
Yeah, this has been a real weird start to the season. Come back from California, play one home game, fly to Florida for one game,
Right.
then come back. It's been a really whirlwind first month of the season here.
Yeah, and I'm not smart enough to take a game off.
Yeah.
The Clifton was not very good in his two previous games. He was I kind of remarked to somebody else that he reminded me a lot of later Darius Kasparaitis, where he's trying to make these big hits to sort of get noticed or make an impact, in the process pulling himself entirely out of position and not defending well. He doesn't have much of an offensive game to offset when he does make a defensive mistake. So it just really was kind of a nightmare for him. He comes in with Ryan Graves. Graves gets called up. It's Graves, Clifton. And I don't know your thoughts, Vince. I'm thinking, oh boy, this could be an epic fail. And they've been absolutely great. I mean, Ryan Graves had, 8 shots over 2 games this weekend. He's walking the blue line to find a shooting lane. He's moving the puck. He's skating it out of trouble. And I'm wondering, Kyle Dubas has to just be giggling at his good fortune, because that was his great albatross. That was, Dubas's folly.
Yeah. Well, that and the Jari contract.
And the Carlson trade. And yeah, but anyway.
No, the Carlson trade, I still give him credit for. He basically traded all of their bad players for the guy who just won the Norris Trophy. I still don't know how he pulled that off, but I digress.
No, that's I don't disagree. I go back and forth some days. Some days I'm like, ooh. Other days, yeah, exactly as you say. But yeah, those couple of moves, and now Ryan Graves looks like a better version of anything we expected when they signed him. It just took a few weeks in Wilkes-Barre, where they cast him as the number one defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
They put him on the top power play. They played him 25 minutes a night. They let him work on things like on the offensive side. You wouldn't think that's what they did down there, but I don't know if it was more of a what the hell?
Yeah.
Sure, try it. Or if it was, an intentional strategy, but it worked. I mean, he's mentally.
Yeah, I think it was just the boost of confidence that he needed. And it's funny to say you would get a boost of confidence by getting demoted to the AHL, but like you said, he's playing on the top power play unit. He's playing 25 minutes a night, and he, some in his mind, he's like, "Hey, I can still do this." And to his credit, he didn't go down there and mope, or he didn't go down there and just.
Oh, I would have been miserable.
Yeah.
I'd be more like David Kampf, quite frankly.
Yeah, go from taking charter flights to riding in buses and all the stuff that goes along with playing in the minors. And all he did was go down there and work on his game, and he came back up and he's looked good in the short sample size. And that's what I'll caution. I would say it's a short sample size, it's a small sample size.
Yeah.
But so far so good. He does look much more confident this time around than
I don't
he did.
think he can play that well. I guess he's played 3 games. 1 getting his feet wet, and 2 really good games. I don't think you can play that well. Yeah, there might be a little bit of regression.
Yeah.
But you can't display those skills and they don't go away. Right? Maybe I suppose if hard times, if he goes through hard times, to quote Dusty Rhodes, maybe he walks back a few of those skills and forgets he has them, or so on. But I don't see that happening. I think, like, once you discover them again, rediscover them, there's a certain built-in impenetrable confidence that might come from that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I've been through it. I got sent down and embarrassed and all of that. And here I am. I just need to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, and it's funny. He played what, like 80 games last year and had 1 goal, and couldn't buy himself a bounce to save his life last season. He gets called back up against his former team yesterday, and a puck that has no business going in hits about 3 different things and then goes in the net. You know, maybe his fortune is starting to change a little bit. So we'll see over, the next X amount of games if he stays at this level or if he regresses a little bit. But he definitely has a different look of confidence to him this season.
All right, Vince. I appreciate you very much. It's actually been a whole lot more fun talking to somebody else instead of the wall in front of me. I appreciate you doing the podcast with me.
Yeah, anytime. I love talking hockey, and I hope we could do it again.
Once again, reminder, Vincent loves talking hockey, not to me. That has been it for No Pucks Given here, episode 38. You can always check out the podcast page on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. If you can get to the top menu bar, go to the podcast page, and the permanent player is right there. Just otherwise subscribe so that you get the automatic downloads. That's how I get paid. So do that on Odyssey and Apple and Amazon or wherever else you can find the show. We always appreciate producer Scott, who has to sift through all of this because I always forget to take notes on what we talked about. And quite frankly, I veer on tangents, and Vince didn't help me in that regard in any way, shape, or form. So, Vince, thanks a lot, man. We'll do it again. Wait, am I back next Sunday or not?
I was going to ask you that once we hung up, but we could talk about it right now.
I have no idea where I am next Sunday night. If I'm at home, we'll do the podcast. Otherwise, I guess maybe next week I'm talking to the wall in a hotel. And then we'll do it again in 2 weeks. I don't know. To be determined. Tune in. Find out. Have fun.